The greatest team that never won anything. Football has a strange way of deciding who gets remembered. You'd think the greatest teams always win the biggest trophies. Most of the time they do, but not always. Some teams played beautiful football. They inspired millions. They changed the way the game was played. People still talk about them decades later. Yet when the season ended, they had nothing. No league title. No European trophy. No golden ending. How can one of football's greatest teams finish with empty hands? The answer is far more fascinating than you might think. When people talk about greatness, they usually point to trophies. Champions League winners. League champions. World Cup winners. History often remembers the final score. But football is much more complicated than that. Sometimes the best football doesn't win. Sometimes the most entertaining team goes home disappointed. Sometimes perfection isn't enough. One of the greatest examples is the Netherlands during the 1974 World Cup. They weren't expected to change football forever. Yet they did. People called their style total football. At first, that sounds complicated. It isn't. Imagine every player being able to play almost every position. If the left back attacked, someone else instantly covered his position. If the striker dropped into midfield, another player ran forward. The team moved like one giant machine. Everyone attacked. Everyone defended. Everyone understood the game. It was football unlike anything most fans had ever seen. Opponents struggled to understand what they were watching. Players appeared everywhere. Nobody stayed in one place. The ball moved constantly. The team never seemed to panic. Even without touching the ball, every player created space. It looked effortless. But behind that beauty was incredible discipline. Every movement had a purpose. Every run opened another opportunity. The symbol of that team was Johan Cruyff. Not because he scored the most goals, but because he seemed to control the entire match. He saw passes before anyone else. He moved before defenders reacted. He made impossible situations look simple. Even today, many coaches still study the football he inspired. The Netherlands reached the World Cup final. Millions believed they were about to complete one of the greatest tournaments ever played. The final was against West Germany. Everything seemed perfect. The Dutch kicked off. The Germans didn't even touch the ball. Pass after pass. Movement after movement. Then, penalty. Goal. The Netherlands were leading before Germany had completed a single pass. It looked like history had already been written. But football rarely follows the script. West Germany stayed calm. They didn't panic. They didn't abandon their plan. Slowly, they fought their way back into the game. Another penalty. 1-1. Then another goal. Suddenly, everything had changed. The team that had amazed the world was behind. Despite all their beautiful football, despite dominating so much of the tournament, they couldn't find another goal. The final whistle blew. West Germany became world champions. The Netherlands became something else. Legends without the trophy. That sounds impossible. How can a losing team become legendary? Because football isn't only about results. It's about influence. That Dutch team inspired generations. Managers copied their ideas. Academies changed how young players were trained. Modern positional football traces many of its ideas back to that tournament. Pep Guardiola has often spoken about Johan Cruyff's influence. Many of today's tactical systems exist because of what that Dutch team started. They lost the final, but they changed football forever. And they aren't the only example. Football history is full of unforgettable teams that somehow finished empty-handed. Arsenal's young generation before they became champions. Hungary's incredible national team in the 1950s. Brazil's magical 1982 squad. Ajax teams that revolutionized tactics but fell just short in Europe. Sometimes the team everyone remembers isn't the team holding the trophy. Why does this happen? Because football has something almost no other sport has. A single mistake can erase months of brilliance. One missed chance. One unlucky deflection. One brilliant save. 90 incredible minutes can be decided by 1 second. That's why the best team doesn't always win. The better team often creates more chances. The winning team simply takes the biggest one. Fans don't always realize how small the difference really is. A shot hits the post instead of going in. A referee makes one decision. A player slips. The weather changes. The crowd creates pressure. Tiny moments become history. Years later, people remember only the final result. They forget how close everything really was. That's what makes football so emotional. If trophies were guaranteed for the best team, The sport would become predictable. There would be fewer miracles, fewer underdogs, fewer unforgettable nights. The uncertainty is exactly what makes every match matter. Maybe that's why some teams become immortal without winning. They gave fans something even rarer than a trophy. They gave them inspiration, a style, an identity, a reason to fall in love with football itself. Children copied their moves. Coaches copied their ideas. Future stars grew up watching them. Their influence lasted far longer than any medal. The next time someone says they won nothing, ask a different question. Did they change the game? Did they inspire a generation? Did people still talk about them decades later? Because sometimes, the greatest victory isn't lifting a trophy. It's changing football forever.